Thank you. Can everybody hear me? I'm going to try to stay away from the podium if I can. Thank the Municipal League for allowing me to come here to speak. I'm here on behalf of the Center Director at Stennis Space Center, Dr. Richard Gilbert. He was unavailable, so I got one of those tag you're it. So here I am. As was said, I'm the Director of the Office of Procurement out at Stennis Space Center. I'm responsible for the major acquisitions that go on. Primarily, we deal in very large contracts that employ the people that actually do the work at Stennis Space Center, turning the wrenches, turning the knobs to make sure that we test engines for the nation. That's our primary mission out there, is rocket engine testing. And as you saw in the video clip, we've been doing it for a very long time. Most recently, you've got a little handout. Some of my friends from NASA, I'm sure, brought these over. The Space Launch System. We tested the engines for this rocket last year in 2021. This is the rocket that's propelling us to the next generation of space travel. So just a little bit about what NASA's plans are. What we say is we're going to the moon, Mars, and beyond. And the first step of that is to get to the moon. And the Space Launch System is that, we call it a heavy lift rocket. Who all remembers the space shuttle? Looked like an airplane? I was giving a little talk to my brother about the differences between the rockets, and he says, you guys are going backwards. You had the space shuttle that looks like an airplane. Now you're going back to the Apollo days to just a big long tube. Well, the reason for that is you need the ability to break out of lower Earth's orbit. And the shuttle didn't do that. It went to the International Space Station and came back. Well, the next step is to go back to the moon. You need something very powerful to do that. And that's what Space Launch System does, and that's what we tested here at Stennis Space Center, again in 2021. And so just briefly, the plans for NASA are, hopefully at the end of August, we launch Artemis 1, which is what you just saw, the Space Launch System. It'll be unmanned, and we're going to get it out of orbit or get it into orbit, and we're going to bring it back and test all the systems, test the crew module, test the rocket itself. That's the first mission. The second mission hopefully happens in 2024 or 25, will be manned. And we're going to take it up, and we're going to put it in orbit, we're going to orbit the moon, and we're going to test some more systems, and we're going to bring it back. And then the third mission is to actually go land on the moon. And then so once we do that, once we get to the moon, we're not leaving. Now, we won't have personnel on the moon 24 hours a day for the next 50 years, but we will, in essence, set up a station there. The intent is to set up a station, build a rocket in space, and then launch that to Mars. So the reason that we can't get to Mars from the Earth is because we don't have enough propellant. We don't have enough power to break out of the lower Earth orbit and then continue on. So we'll launch from what we call Gateway, a much smaller rocket, and then we'll get to take that to Mars and beyond. And we'll do a bunch of science, and hopefully all of this is the intent to improve our expectations, how we live on Earth. So that's what NASA's plans are, and luckily between the prior administration and this administration, there were no significant changes. Sometimes we run into that with city leaders. With federal government leaders, you'll have an administration, then a new administration, and there'll be a departure from the previous plan, and it sort of sets you back. And I've seen that in my 16 years at NASA, that we'll head in a direction, a new administration will come in, and we'll depart from the original plan, and we'll take up a new plan. Well, that hasn't happened, and I don't believe it's going to happen, so we're going to get to the moon, and we're going to get beyond the moon, and we're going to use that science to help our existence here on Earth. As part of that plan, we also have given the ride share to the commercial customers to get us to the International Space Station. So you're seeing startup companies, you're seeing companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Orbit. That is all becoming commercialized. NASA's going to get out of the business of that, getting to the space station, doing the science there, and we'll allow that to be commercialized. And we're seeing that today. You've seen NASA astronauts on SpaceX flights. We've tested SpaceX's engines out at Stennis Space Center. So that's been a big departure in the way we do business. We're going to go do the hard stuff, the almost impossible stuff, and we're going to let the commercial industry do the things that we've been doing for the last 50 years, which has created great growth and opportunities at Stennis Space Center. If you recall in the video, Stennis has about, in the video I think it said 40 resident agencies. Well, we're now over 50. So we've got 50 entities out there that share space with us. We also share cost with those entities. There's about $30 million a year that gets shared. Things like security, the fire department, water treatment, some of the utilities. So we lower the cost for everybody who resides and works out there, and everybody gets a better deal. And that's a unique environment. It causes me problems as the procurement officer. The way I structure the contracts out there is almost every one of those entities can have access to my contracts. And so if you're a small commercial company or you're a state entity or another federal agency, I provide you housekeeping through my contracts. I cut the grass around your building through my contracts. Or we do some of the hard stuff. We help you tune your engines if you're doing engine testing out there. So it's a unique environment, and because of the change, we're growing commercially. And that's one of the main points I want to talk about. We've got a plan. We call it Enterprise Park. Hopefully some of you have heard about it. We're trying to set up an area. We've already dedicated the area. Mississippi Power's ran power out there, and it's ready to go for commercial companies that don't want to or can't get inside of the gate. Oftentimes what we'll have is we'll have startup companies that may have some foreign nationals as a part of their company, and it's very difficult to get them on site. So we've set up in areas where companies can come out there, be close to us, have access to some of our engineers, and we can partner with them and grow their business, grow their commercial business, as they also help NASA grow. So that Enterprise Park is a big deal for us, and it's in the fledgling states, and we're looking for other opportunities. In addition to Enterprise Park, we just stood up a relatively new business development office, growing all of our commercial partnerships, making sure that we're providing the goods and services that companies need, state entities need. We really partner with Mississippi State. They sponsor a building out there for the NASA Shared Service Center. The state built the building, and then we maintain it for them and help them. They employ 600 or 700 people out there just at that building. So those are kind of the things that are going on at NASA, the big NASA, and Stennis in general. We're here as servants of the government, and we're here to keep Mississippi on the map. There's a saying by Warner von Braun that anything going to the moon is going to go through South Mississippi because we're testing engines, and that's still true today. And we want to keep that viable. We want to keep that gem in South Mississippi. Hopefully you saw the handout here. Nearly $1 billion spent through NASA. Most of it comes through my office, but a lot of this is just salaries. $750 million in the 50-mile radius around Stennis Space Center. That is huge for our area. That is huge for the coast and the state abroad. So we need leaders like yourself to encourage the feds and even your fellow state and local. We can't let this go away. Now, Stennis Space Center is trying to grow its business model as well. We've entered into autonomous service. We've got a project on the station right now. We're trying to grow another business line to keep things going. It's very difficult for us to get the fresh outs out of college. They want to go do something else. They don't want to stay in South Mississippi, but we need them. And we need you to help us encourage them, and we need you to get them to events that we have. I sponsor probably 50 small business events a year from my office alone. We have technology transfer office that has sponsorships available. I constantly have an intern in my office coming out of college trying get them interested in staying in Mississippi, and we don't want to lose that talent to other locations. So that's the Stennis story. And my story is, as you saw, I've got about $4 billion under contract. On average, I obligate about $250 to $300 million a year. That's every year. And that's a lot of work. That's a lot of turnover. And it's a lot of negotiations and contract actions. And that's not just with federal contractors. That's with state organizations. That's the gamut. And that can be a difficult task to spend taxpayer dollars. I'm charged with being fair to the companies. I'm charged with being fair to the taxpayers and saving you money. So last year, I believe my number was $80 million saved. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of return where we can buy more program work, project work, and keep people employed in South Mississippi. And I have to mention Louisiana because we're right there on the state line. So that's what we do. That's what I do. And that kind of leads me into a topic that's near and dear to me is how do you do that? How do you run an organization that spends a bunch of money, that has a diverse background of people, and be excellent and successful? Well, it all comes down to the people. It all comes down to leadership and the people that you employ and the people that you keep happy. NASA goes through a survey. We've been doing it for about the last 10 years. It's not just NASA. It's the federal government has a survey on the best place to work. I'm proud to say for the last 10 years, NASA has been the #1 place to work in what we call a large organization. The #1 place in the federal government to work is NASA. Guess what? Thank you. The #1 office on Stennis Space Center for the last 5 years has been my office. How does that happen? How does that happen? It's easy. It's the people. It's first, hire smart people, let them do their job, and then as a leader, you have to do the things that I think are important as a leader. I consider myself a protector. No one chastises, addresses people that work for me inappropriately. I'll stop a meeting, I'll kick everybody out, and then I'll deal with the conversation that needs to be dealt with. Well, why do I do that? Do I just want to be difficult? Do I just want to stop work? I mean, it disrupts everything and it turns the place upside down when those things happen. But I want my people to know that they have my support. I want my people to know that I'm there to protect them because they're doing the work that I can't do. I'm responsible for it, but I can't do all the work without them. I also am not afraid to let my people lead. Now, I'm responsible for getting the work done, and I answer to the director. And, you know, when you're spending taxpayer dollars, there's a lot of questions. But I'm not afraid to let some of my junior people lead certain projects. And when I give them the authority to lead, I expect them to be successful. But when I give them that authority to lead, I don't plan on babysitting them. They're going to have to report to me and make sure I understand what they're doing and they're not flying off the rails. But that builds the confidence in them. That builds morale in your organization. And that's what leads to having a #1 organization in this diverse environment. I've for the last 3 years, I've had the most diverse office on Stennis Space Center. So that means I have people that don't look like me, people that don't talk like me, people that didn't grow up in the same place as I did, people that don't believe the same things that I do. But we all unite to get the job done. That makes us special. And so as I'm talking to leaders in government, I would ask that you kind of consider those things. I'd also ask you to consider what I call understanding your team. I was mentioned, I spent 21 years in the military. I worked with a lot of commanders who come in for a very short period of time. So they come in the door, we know they're only there for 2 to 3 years. And oftentimes we have them walk in the door, it happens at NASA as well. People walk in the door, they have authority because of their position. They walk in the door for this short period of time, and the first thing out of their mouth is, we're going to do all of these things, and they break out a list of 10 or 12 or 15 things that they're going to do to make the organization better. I can imagine that happens in your line of business. You're newly elected, you take over a new position, and you walk in with your list. Well, let me tell you what the people hear when you walk in with that list. They hear, thank God I'm the new guy and I'm here, because you dummies would have messed this thing up without me. Thank God that I'm here now and we can right the ship. If it wasn't for me coming on board, you guys would be having more problems. And then they take the position, you'll be out in 2 years, you'll be out in 3 years, and we'll go back to doing the way we want to do things. So what you have to do is come in with a short list. And you pick 2 or 3 things, you focus on those things, you give them some successes, you let them see that you're not there to harm them, that you're all about the organization and caring about them, and then your organization thrives. But if you walk in the door, new people, with, thank God here I am, you will probably have problems that you didn't need to have. You're going to have problems running an organization anyway. So you might as well just deal with the smaller set than the larger set. Also, how do we stay excellent? I've been a part of several organizations that have been determined to be number one at what we do at any given time, where we have an audit come in or we have a team come in and look at us. When I was at Keesler, we were determined to be the number one. We got an excellent rating at the contracting office at Keesler Air Force Base. Doesn't happen in the Air Force that somebody gets an excellent rating. There's always some findings and you get, you guys are good, but you're not as great as you think. Well, we were it. That was the hardest next 3 years I ever been through. Trying to keep because now the commander that comes in or the people who are in charge want to stay on top. Well, how do you stay on top? It's hard. Well, it really gets back to the people. It gets back to how do you motivate the people, give them the ability to go do what they want, or not what they want, what they need to do. And that I'll kind of wrap it up with making sure you understand the difference between authority and leadership. As I said, I run the procurement office at Stennis Space Center. I have what's called an unlimited warrant. I have the ability to obligate the federal government to any amount of dollars that I write on a piece of paper. It can be a contract for $1,000. It could be the contract to clean this space that's probably several $100,000 a year. I have a contract at Stennis Space Center that's $1.2 billion. I have a contract at Stennis Space Center that's $3.3 billion, and it's all under my signature. That's authority. I've been given that authority. Well, guess what? That authority can be taken away. I can lose my job tomorrow, they can pull my warrant, and that authority goes away. Oftentimes, as leaders, we confuse authority with leadership. I have authority, express authority given to me by my position, but that doesn't have anything to do with how I lead my organization. If I walk in the door and demand and demand and demand because I have all this authority, we will fail, fail, fail. It is when I walk into an organization and first, I take my time, I look around, I investigate, I listen, then we devise a plan with my leadership team. That's when the organization also thrives. It's because now I'm leading the team versus making them do something. And a last piece, I'm trying to be conscious of time, that I'll say is a wise person, my chief counsel, that for years she and I did not get along. We butt heads. We just could not figure out how to work together. She would say, that's the left side of the room, and I would say, that's the right side. And we just couldn't find a way to figure it out. And so one day we got in a room and we kind of duked it out. And at the end of that, what we realized is we both had the same goal. We both had the same objectives. We just approached it different. And so what I learned was, stop talking. And what I learned is, when I talk, because of the authority that I have, it changed the way people responded. And so we couldn't problem solve if I started talking too early. And opposite, we couldn't problem solve if she started talking too early. So as the leaders of two separate organizations that depend on each other, I need my lawyer. I talk to my lawyers every day. We had to realize when we go into the room, let our team talk. I may have an opinion on what I think or where I think we should go or how things should unroll, but I let the team talk first. That way I would get their feedback. That way I would get the diversity of thought. That way I would get the diversity of opinion. And then at the end, I could wrap it up with whether I like it or don't like it, or let's make the corrections. That was the second or the largest thing that made her organization, because she's got the #1 legal office on base 2, that made both of our organizations skyrocket, because one, the leaders weren't arguing with each other, but also we were truly listening to our team versus me calling the meeting, pulling my leadership team in and telling them, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, this is how fast we're going to do it, and this is when I want it all done. Versus, this is the problem that we have, this is the goal that we need to meet. How do you best think we can get there? Listening to their input, giving them the ability to lead themselves, and then as the ultimate leader, making sure we met our goals and objectives is the way to make your organization thrive. So I ask, hopefully you can take some of these thoughts back with you as you're leading your teams, as you're leading your municipality, your state. You've got some people that are around you, I hope, that are smart. And if not, get some people around you that are smart. And let them do what you ask them to do. Let them do what you pay them to do. Let them do what they're there to do. And your life will be a little bit better, I believe, in the long run. So, again, on behalf of Dr. Rick Gilbert at Stennis Space Center, thank you for inviting us. And I'll be here for a little while if anybody has any specific questions or thoughts about Stennis Space Center. Thank you.